guardians as security analysts, doing the gambit of security for them. One of the things that we do is AMI assessments, really anything for the smart grid potentially, but we've really been concentrating on the advanced metering infrastructure. And so we provide utilities with assessments of their, from the smart meter, which are on the side of the homes, how they communicate through the radios, through some pole-top devices, through the cellular networks, back to the back end, and then back to the resources that are managing the external devices, doing network penetration testing, doing web assessments, and so forth on the internal environment as well. The talk that we gave today kind of described some of the, was an example of how we do assessments on hardware devices and how we utilize that information to develop a tool to provide an assessment of an optical port, which is an external port that field technicians use to gather data from the meter or to reconfigure the meter. There wasn't a tool out there before that provided those capabilities, just the tools that the meter manufacturers provided to actually reconfigure the devices to do normal everyday day-to-day work. So we're providing the utilities, we're providing the utility vendors with a tool to help them generate anomalous data and to determine what attackers or the activity that attackers do is going to look like.
I mean, it sounded like those was kind of Black Hat or DEF CON in years past that they, oh, we can hack the smart grid. Everybody's like, oh, gee, that's a problem. What I was hoping that you'd have a sense of is sort of, can you bring it up and think, okay, well, what's the problem? They know it. They fixed it, or they haven't. If they haven't, sort of, what is the vulnerability level at? Like how
Yes, sir. And it's hard. It's difficult for me to answer that question because I've only dealt with certain meters. I've only dealt with certain meter manufacturers and only certain utilities. I mean, there's 3,500 utilities out there. There's, I believe, at least 6 or 7 companies that are generating meters. There's probably 5 or 6 that are creating third-party solution providers that are bringing all of these things together. And I'm not even counting the stuff on the back end. So it's difficult for me to answer your question because each situation is going to be unique.
What could someone with malicious intent or snooping intent do through that blinking eye?
Through the optical port, yes, through the winking eye. You know, just like anything else, anything that they can think of, you know, and that's you know, we're showing that people can develop their tools on their own with a little bit of time and effort to generate tools that do what they want to identify anomalous situations. But what we're doing in this case is we're showing the vendors, we're showing the utilities how to identify when those things are occurring. Because those things are going to go on all the time, whether it's through the optical port or whether it's somebody pulling the meter and making a modification and putting it back on there. You know, these are publicly facing devices. You know, they can't have somebody standing at every single meter to make sure, hey, don't touch that. You know, they can't have a camera on every single meter. And so what they are doing is they're monitoring that on the back end. They're using computers to make it faster to identify that and address it.
What's your level of trust? You're more informed than most. Are you completely comfortable with the smart grid system the way it's designed now? You think it's safe enough?
I think everybody's doing their very best to move forward in a professional manner. I absolutely do.
Everybody, really?
And actually, he's making a reference to probably the person that asked me to pull the talk before. But yes, they're actually asking. I mean, they work with us very well. Once we started talking to them afterwards, they were very upfront. They were very guarded. You know, a lot of vendors are very guarded towards some of this research, us talking about it, us putting out tools and so forth, because nobody likes you to tell them that their baby's ugly. You know, but we might say that your baby's ugly, but we're also showing you that when your baby grows up, if it grows up properly and you feed it correctly and you do the proper things, then it'll be a beautiful baby. It'll be a beautiful adolescent and an adult. And so that's what we're trying to help vendors do and utilities do as well.
You mentioned something about criminal activity that's already been done through the optical port. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there's basically I'm basing that information off a FBI report that was released. Brian Krebs actually reported back in February on that. It was about a utility in Puerto Rico, but that was more of an insider thing. That was more of somebody stealing software, knowing the password, the security code that would make changes, and then coming up with a scheme to get people to pay for it to change it. So we have seen that. That's the only instance that I know of that's been documented. People within the utility industry might know of more.
You have on your own, are you completely comfortable with the level of security that it affords you?
I have not assessed that. You know, so I can't really answer that question. You know, I can educate a guest and say that the solution that they're providing should be able to detect if there's any changes to it, but whether they're able to do it, whether they have the information that I provided out there today, I have no clue. That's part of the reason why I'm putting it out there, so that, you know, I can protect my family, but I can help protect our society as well. Yes, sir.
So follow up on your family. Let's just change gears a little bit to privacy. There have been talks at conferences, a lot of coverage about the issues of privacy, of Fourth Amendment issues, about when someone's coming and going from their house. So you have a smart meter on your house. Do you have any of those concerns regarding your privacy and the smart meter on the side of your house?
Just like any other new technology, I mean, they're developing a lot of data that we don't necessarily understand how people are going to be using. I'm not a data privacy expert, so I can't really predict. I can't tell you what they might, or I can't predict what they might be using it for. But I can tell you right now that the industry is looking into it. They have specific groups that are helping the vendors and the utilities understand, okay, you're generating all this data, you're storing all this data for historical purposes. This is what it means to that business. This is what it means to that individual. And so you need to protect those. You know, at some point they're going to start selling the data, or potentially they will. So they need to understand what are the ramifications of that. And that's what these groups were spun up to help investigate and provide guidance for in the future. As far as my data, you can look at my driveway and tell me when I'm gone. You don't necessarily need my smart meter to tell you that. Corporations are probably going to have the biggest concern, consumption rates, whether they're going to meet deadlines for production and stuff like that. That's where the biggest concern from that standpoint is. I don't know of anything personally on an individual level, but like I said, I'm not a data protection